Champions Mojo is part of the CG Sports Network.
Welcome to the award-winning Champions Mojo, hosted by two world record-holding athletes and health, life, and leadership coaches. Be inspired as you listen to Conversations with Champions. And now, your hosts, Kelly Pallas and Maria Parker.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Champions Mojo podcast. And as usual, I am co-hosting with Maria Parker. Hey, Maria.
Hi, Kelly. It's so good to be with you today.
It's wonderful. Maria, today we're going to talk about doing things that make us uncomfortable and why it's important. Many thought leaders believe that to be successful, we must get out of our comfort zone. Today, we're going to give you some concrete reasons for getting uncomfortable. The basic concept is that our physical lives right now can be incredibly comfortable and easy, and that adding physical and mental challenges can really be good for our well-being. Doing so gives us confidence, and when we face hard things we don't choose, it makes us even more confident.
Right. And I'm really looking forward to talking about this today. In December, I'll be releasing my book, Do Tough, which incorporates many of the same ideas based on my own experiences, a lot of which I've shared on this podcast. And we've certainly been fortunate to discuss discomfort with the many champions that we've interviewed on the show. Some of the concepts we're going to discuss today come from Michael Easton's new book, The Comfort Crisis, and we highly recommend it if you'd like to dive deeper into this topic.
And Maria, I would highly recommend your book as well. And even though Michael Easton does have his book out there and is doing the podcast circuit, the person, the thought leader that introduced me to this topic of, am I too comfortable? Are we too comfortable? Is you. And so I think your book coming out, I cannot wait. Do Tough. You have always had that mantra of doing things that are tough, going to make you stronger. And, you know, we're not talking exactly about like the no pain, no gain. We're not talking about pushing yourself in a hard workout or, you know, doing something gruelingly painful. It's more of a tweak, isn't it, Maria? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, sure. I mean, you know, when you talk about hard things, there are hard physical things and there's hard mental things and there's hard things you choose and hard things that you don't choose. But I think one way to think about this right now is about our lives right now. We have endless hot water. We've got endless food. We've got perfectly temperature controlled. I mean, if we get a little bit, last night I was complaining because we had the thermostat set at 73 and I really like to sleep at 72. And, you know, we have easy transportation. It's easy to get from one place to another. We have unlimited entertainment and we can always be sheltered if we want to. So our lives compared to how we evolved are very, very comfortable. And that can cause some problems for us.
Yeah, for sure. So let's ask ourselves, you know, Maria, are you too comfortable?
That's a great question. I think in some ways I am too comfortable.
What ways?
Well, I think I can challenge myself more in the doing things that get me out of my comfort zone, not necessarily physically, because I know how to push myself as an athlete, as do you. But there's plenty of things that I can make myself uncomfortable. And we're going to get into this a little bit later in our conversation. But one thing that I think about almost every single time I get into bed is, wow, this bed is comfortable, because I've spent enough nights sleeping on the ground or sleeping maybe at a train station if I was traveling, or not being able to sleep because of hot flashes, that when I can get into a bed that feels cool and just right, I can just think, this is so comfortable. So I think in some ways I'm very comfortable and I need to, you know, push out, but in other ways I have experienced enough discomfort to be able to thank God every night for my comfortable bed. What about you, Kelly?
Yes, I think like you and probably a lot of athletes listening to our show, we know how to push through those physical discomforts, you know, of swimming hard or doing a hard race or even breast cancer surgery. Right. I'm wearing my pink, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I'm wearing my pink this month. So I feel like that was something that, you know, I didn't know was a challenge that I went through. But I think for me, the areas that I really want people to think about is relationship discomfort.
Oh,
And
interesting.
that is mental. So
Right.
I look around and
Social,
of course,
really social.
social, but
It's mental too, right?
it's mental that you're thinking, is this person going to reject me? Or is this person going to argue with me? Or is this person? So I think about how important having loving, supportive relationships are in one's life. And that, like, everything comes from that. And so when you put yourself out there and you're authentic, I love rom-coms. That's just out in the open. I got to get it out there. I do. Science fiction is my favorite movie genre, but
Rom-coms.
I love rom-coms. And it's always the tense build-up situation is where the person that's in love with the other person won't tell them, and you want them to. You're like, please just tell them and everything will be easy, but they may get rejected. If you like, I don't think, I think Mark would be okay with talking about this, but Mark and his father don't talk much, and comes around to Father's Day and I'm like, why don't you call your dad? And he's like, no, I'm not going to call my dad. I don't feel like he's calls me, and I'm the one that always reaches out to him. And, I'm just tired of doing that. And so I feel like that is getting out of Mark's comfort zone, and maybe his dad and Mark could have that conversation that really connects them. Or if you're having trouble with a friendship that could you reach out? So I just think that's a comfort zone area for me that I'm really working on, making myself vulnerable and uncomfortable. I think maybe uncomfortable and vulnerable how about this? Vulnerability is uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think there's there's lots of ways to be uncomfortable relationally. I've moved, now it's been a couple of years, almost a year and a half since we moved, and I've been making new friendships, or trying to make new friendships. And I'm pretty good at being vulnerable, I would say. What I guess, or maybe I'm not. I guess what I'm afraid of is being judged, maybe because the people seem so different here. And so for me, making myself uncomfortable relationally means inviting people over to my house, even though I don't think it's ready, or offering to do something. Maybe most of my friends are athletes, maybe offering to go for a run with somebody, even though I know that I'm slower, or even just having people over when I know they already have lots of friends and they're probably super busy. So yeah, I like that. And I think that's really important. There was something I heard Michael Easton say in an interview that I just thought was amazing. I don't know if it's true or not, but he said that there's an American Indian or Native American concept that we all have 75 problems. So if we don't have big problems, then we're going to carry 75 problems with us. So if all of the, if we're comfortable, say, in our relationships, and we have all the hot water and the comfortable bed and the shelter, then we're going to create problems out of the little things like, should I go into this place without a mask? Because, and we can be neurotic. Basically, we can become neurotic, worrying about little things that don't really matter. I used to say, when Jenny was dying of cancer, now I know what's important. And I'm never going to be, unfortunately, this hasn't been true in my life, but I would tell myself, I'm never going to be bothered by the stupid little things that aren't important anymore, because this is what's important. And I think that's what this whole make yourself uncomfortable thing is about. It's about making sure that you have enough problems in your life that you choose, basically, that you want to have, that you don't end up making problems out of things that shouldn't be problems.
Yeah, that's really a deep concept. And if people are suffering, I'm trying to equate that to my very comfortable life. I feel like, I work from home and I can swim in, my backyard pool, and it's just like refrigerator is full. And so I feel really comfortable. And so as someone who, can suffer on and off with anxiety, usually not if I'm focused on something,
Right.
which is,
You create a problem like a book deadline, and then you're not anxious because you're so
that's
busy.
what I would ask you, because I haven't read Michael Easton's book, but I followed you, and I've certainly followed thought leaders that say get out of your comfort zone. And so how would like, what kind of problems, like what are 75 problems that we would carry around all the time?
Well, there's this, I mean, you're going to have different problems at different times, but one thing that could be a problem is if you say, you know what, I'm like, for instance, Jim and I are getting ready to go across the Grand Canyon in a day, and there is so much to that. I mean, there's a lot to think about. And, but actually, and instead of worrying about like the furniture placement in my new house, I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this Grand Canyon and raising money for brain cancer research and so forth. So, I mean, I think you can choose things that make you uncomfortable. For me, like, I was thinking, okay, the example that Easton gives in his book are really about like bringing yourself to the edge of something, even from a survival point of view. Like, you're outside and you have to pay attention, or you're not going to be able to sleep tonight, or maybe you're going to get terribly sick, or maybe you're going to die because you haven't got all of your equipment. So a lot of it is, from his book's perspective, as far as I can understand it, is about being outside and doing these sort of outdoor challenges. But there are other challenges. If I'm trying to create, like you were writing your book, but if I'm trying to create a new nonprofit, or if I'm trying to solve, if I create a problem that really draws me in, then I'm going to have a much better understanding of what, if I get stuck in line, at the grocery store, and the lady in front of me is counting out, her pennies, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Right. I'm going across the Grand Canyon in a day. People are dying from brain cancer every day. That's a problem that I can have. So anyway, I think and so, I mean, so challenging ourselves in every area that we might be uncomfortable. So, for us, it's not about challenging ourselves maybe physically, because we do it all the time with our sports, right? But what is an area that I'm really comfortable in? And I mean, you taught me about this with cold showers, right? Take a cold shower. That's uncomfortable. Why would you do that? You do it so that you can. It's the alternating theory of happiness from 17 magazine. Tell about that. Have we talked about that on the show before? That we have
never talked about the 17 magazine poster, which is right up there on the wall. And it literally is 3 feet from me. So I've had this poster since 1976, I think, just to show how old, but it's a beautiful poster, 17 magazine. It's the alternating theory of happiness, which says, some nights you dress up in, fancy clothes and you go out and you have a great time. And some nights you sit in your pajamas and you watch movies and you don't go out. And some, you have to alternate. Some days you get a gift from a friend and you love that. And some days you give a gift to a friend, so it is important that we alternate. And I think that it makes you appreciate, because if everything is always just comfortable and hunky-dory, as we say, then you don't ever appreciate that as much when you are uncomfortable. And certainly, being a cancer survivor, it does. The minute you hear the word, I have cancer, nothing is a real problem. Right. Nothing is a real problem. But I think to kind of give people a little traction and tools is, so what do you gain if you're uncomfortable about getting a new relationship? So you might gain, you might be wanting to introduce yourself to a new friend. Like we have a master swimming program in our city that's really growing and it's really exciting. And, so all kinds of new people are joining, and Mark and I have been making an effort to have coffee after practice, invite everybody to coffee. And so initially it's like the first person, do I ask this person, do they want to go out to coffee with us? But the reward is that's a little uncomfortable. Yeah. And so the reward is getting a new friend and getting group camaraderie. So I think that, there's probably emotional discomfort and spiritual and physical and
yes,
mental,
in every
there's all
area.
kinds
Mhm.
of discomfort that once you kind of push through, that there is a reward, there really is that reward.
So yeah, that's absolutely true. There's that, we used to talk about this. Jim's a doctor, and he used to talk about this concept of allergic adults, and there's some science that would suggest that kids, when they're young, who are exposed to allergens and to more germs, like maybe they're not that clean, they actually become healthier adults. And there's sort of concept of leaning into a win. And so if you grow up in a very sterile environment, you tend to be a less healthier adult. So that's the same kind of, idea. Also the concept first world problems. I mean, just like, if we don't know what a real problem is, then we don't, then we're always, everything's a little bit of a problem. And that with the friendship thing is like, yeah, I can be really comfortable in my circle. And I've seen that around here. I'm trying to break into these well-established, people have lived here for generations, groups, and it's hard. I'm putting myself out there, but it's so nice when when you do break in, like you say, you get that little jolt of happiness. But I think what people have to understand in this day and age right now, when we're still in the throes of the pandemic, and everybody's terrified of the Delta variant right now, even with the pandemic, we are in the best time we have ever been. And there's less war, there are less deaths, there's less racism, there's less hunger, there's less everything. There's a wonderful book that my daughter Jenna, and her husband Thomas recommend, called Factfulness. And it basically just lays out this idea that things are actually really, really good right now, even in the pandemic, even with all, we can look at our world right now and think that everything's going to hell in a handbasket, but it's really not. And putting ourselves outside of our comfort zone, physically and mentally, spiritually, will help us to lean in a little bit to things that will help us understand what is a real problem and what's not a real problem. And this is really important for kids too. You got to challenge kids. The idea of helicopter parents or bulldozer parents, keeping the kids, all the troubles away from kids. They have to experience problems. Everybody has to, unfortunately, we're made to experience discomfort.
Yes. And discomfort is really a huge part of developing discipline. So
yes.
if somebody's listening and they're like, I have a lot of people ask me, how do I develop discipline? As a coach, people ask me that. And so developing discipline, I would say the foundational building block of developing discipline is learning to be uncomfortable. And,
in every way.
In every way. And I think one of the best ways, if anybody just wants to lose, 5 to 20 pounds, you don't need apps. You don't need to count anything. If you go to bed hungry every night for 30 days, not starving, but just like
empty,
your belly isn't full. You ate a decent meal. And this may be the precursor to intermittent fasting.
Right.
But if you go to bed hungry every night for 30 days, you're going to lose weight. You're going to lose 5 to 20 pounds. And that's just the disciplined way of using discomfort to lose weight. And it can be like that with anything that you want in life. It's working an extra, hour on something.
And we tend to focus on the uncomfortable part, like, because when you're talking about that, I'm thinking, oh, going to bed hungry is so uncomfortable. And I can imagine myself lying there, my stomach rumbling around or whatever. But
I mean, I'm not talking about starving where you can't sleep.
I know. But the point I'm making is you're never hungry when you wake up, ever. Like you go to bed ravenous, you wake up, you're fine. And then you feel really good. And I think the point about choosing discomfort is the payoff. And I was going to tell the story. I went out on our farm. The mosquitoes are horrible. I mean, they're just, I've never seen anything like it. You walk out and you just get swarmed by mosquitoes. And I had sprayed, but the spray was kind of wearing off on it. But I wanted to pick raspberries. We have these beautiful raspberry bushes. And if you don't pick the raspberries, they just sit there on the vine. And, but it was very damp and mosquito-y around. But I just kind of plowed through for about 2 hours I was out there being bitten, it's kind of smacking and picking
Oh my
and smacking and picking. I got 5 quarts of raspberries, which I spread around my neighbors and friends, and it was wonderful. But when I came in, I had this little like buzz. I mean, I was just like,
wow,
man, I am tough. I survived that. It was just, and I mean, it wasn't a big deal. I mean, but that is what being uncomfortable does, right? It gives you a little buzz. And we've been doing these hikes to prepare for crossing the canyon. And every hike we've done has been a little bit harder than we think we can do. And when we're done, we're like, yeah, so the discomfort, we tend to focus on like, I don't want to be hungry. I don't want to be, whatever. I don't want to be tired, or I don't want to hurt. I don't want my legs, whatever it is. I don't want to make myself vulnerable. I'm worried. If you focus on that, you're never going to get to that buzzy, happy part where you're sitting there with coffee with your new friend, and you're so glad you took the risk, or you got your 5 quarts of raspberries, and it just feels good. It just feels good.
Yeah. And my little recent getting out of my comfort zone, and it's not, it's nothing huge, but I hate staying in a hotel. that's just, that
I
about
know
me.
I
And
know
I just
you'll make
don't
hotel
like it.
reservations and cancel them every time.
I do it. I mean, literally like all the time. But I have recently been going to hotels a lot for swim meets. So it's the summer, we've had a lot of swim meets all over Florida, and it's, it's usually on the border of, do you want to drive there that morning and drive home that night? So it's about 3 hours to a lot of these meets. And fortunately, Mark's been going with me. And so we've been staying in hotels, and I literally end up being so happy when we do it. Like it just changes. Like
I'm so surprised
DNA.
to hear you say that.
No, it's true. I mean, I'm not crazy about it once, you pack the car and you got to take your toothbrush and your pillow and, like the normal stuff that you take to a hotel, which would have been easier to I just take my swimsuit and my towel and that's it. But you have to pack a little bit more. So that's kind of a pain, but it's a discomfort pain, but it sure is nice to wake up the morning of the meet and be there and not to have to wake up at, 4 a.m. and drive. So that's just a super tiny little,
but that's a big deal
thing
for you. I know you, and that is a big deal for you. And for you to have looked that sort of discomfort and fear in the face and done it anyway, I'm delighted.
Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect example of something that's not a fear.
Right.
I mean, it's really not a fear, and it's not painful. Good Lord, we're staying in a Hilton. I mean, it's not like this is a camping trip and I'm out in the wilderness, but so I think that's, and so what happens is, like I can remember the guy that greeted us at Hilton. He was just jovial, and he was just so sweet. And I thought, oh, it's so nice to, see other faces, of course, with a mask on, but, so those are the little things that make you, so how did that, how does that help me be successful? Well, I swim better because I slept the night before, and I didn't like, if I know I have to get up at 4 a.m. to go to a swim meet,
don't sleep.
I'm not sleeping very well because I'm afraid I'm going to,
oversleep here.
I'm afraid I'm going to oversleep, and oh my God, I'm going to miss. So, it's helped me swim better this summer. It's helped me like have some time with Mark, where the time in the car. So anyway, that's just a small little thing that helps me with my goals, where I say, okay, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and go stay in a hotel.
Right. That's wonderful. And I think that's really important for all of us. I mean, like, I think, a take home might be what areas are you very comfortable in that you would like to grow in, and do something there that scares you, and see how you feel afterwards. I mean, focus on what you feel after you do that, because there's usually a little tingly high that comes after you look fear in the face, like Eleanor Roosevelt said, or was, I don't know who's stop and look fear in face. I can't remember the expression, but basically you gain strength, courage, and confidence every time you stop and look fear in the face. It's really true. You do what you think you cannot do. But one of the things that Michael Easton quotes that I really love is this biologist in Boston who talks about, she studies people's brain waves. And so, I mean, her thing is, and I think this is really important. It's about getting outside. And we've talked about that so many times, you and I, and it's very important to us too. But she basically says, this should be prescribed. This is the way to happiness. 3 times a week, you need to be outside at least 20 minutes. She says, once a month, you need to spend 5 hours in a wild space, like, where you're really out, not, like in a park where you're not near, the restaurant or hotels. And she says, once a year, you should really spend like 3 days at a place as wild as possible. And she studies people's brainwaves, and this is true because you can probably remember a time when you went camping or something, or to the beach. When they get there, they have these beta waves, which are very, that's our normal way of being, kind of stressed. What's next? How am I going to make it home in time for the kids' dinner? Blah, 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 blah. But after 3 days in the wild, the people's brains are completely changed. They're all alpha waves. They're like somebody who's been meditating for years. Basically, it creates, wave, and this is true. I've experienced this myself. Like, you get away from this, even on vacation, but especially if you go to someplace wild. I think this is really true. If you go someplace really wild and beautiful, it just puts everything in perspective. It's like, oh, why was I so worried about getting that email out or whatever, or answering that phone call, or that guy who just, annoyed me, So anyway.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I think this fits in perfectly with, scaring the Parker scary medical conditions, but there is no doubt that if you don't change up your routines, you're more susceptible to dementia. I mean, that is tons of research for Alzheimer's and dementia that, patients that literally, you're in a rut. You just do the same thing every day. And my mom, your beautiful mother-in-law, Norma, she had a very, very comfortable life where she and dad they never traveled. They never left their home. They just stayed there. She looked at her garden. She watched TV. That was it. And I do wonder if she had a project, if she'd have written a book, if she'd have traveled, if she'd have done something different.
She should run for office. She felt so strongly about
she should have definitely run for office. Yeah. that was in her 30s, growing up, walking into the living room and hearing her on the phone with the White House every day growing up. It's true. Like almost every day talking to somebody at the White House. But but anyway, you've got to change things up, because if not, your brain just is going to turn to mush. And, so that is another really, healthy reason that it stimulates your brain to do something that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And this idea always for me lends itself to physical challenges, because I don't think of myself as being particularly good at stuff. So like going golfing, for instance, would be really really uncomfortable for me, because I know I can't hit the ball. In Michael Easton's book and other people, they say take a challenge like that once a year. You don't paddleboard. It's not too dangerous, but see if you can't paddleboard. Do something that's a little scary. Like we did the snowboarding lessons last year, and then it got all shut down, or the year before it got shut down by COVID. I was terrified to do that. I was terrified, but I wanted to do something that, that was new and that, that pushed me a little bit. And so I think those are really good. And he also talks about, and I think this is probably true, that, we're evolved to go long distances, like for instance, running after a gazelle or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so he thinks it's important to walk on uneven ground for distances. And he thinks that, and I know that that's wonderful for me. Jim and I did a 13-mile hike last weekend in a state park near here. And it was really uneven surfaces. It was just like the rocks were really wobbly and stuff like that. And it was really hard. But again, when we were done, we were just high as a kite. It wasn't that hard physically, but it was hard mentally. I mean, it's good for your brain to walk on uneven surfaces. Anyway, point is,
and I think people need to know that there's a huge range of things that can get people out of their comfort zone. From, a new neighbor moves into your neighborhood, walk over, knock on the door and say, welcome to the neighborhood. Right. were the palaces, you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah, that's
from
really
that
true.
to bungee jumping. I mean, I
That's
don't
true.
think it has to be, you know,
Right.
something super scary to get
Right.
out of your comfort
It has to
zone.
be a
That's
little scary.
a
I think a
little scary.
little scary. I think that's it. Do something a little
And
scary.
a little uncomfortable. I mean, it's not scary to take a cold shower. That's uncomfortable
No,
as
that's
hell,
right.
but it's not scary.
Yeah,
So
but
I think it has to
discomfort and
be,
scary are close, aren't they?
they are.
There's
But
some- Yeah, I'm kind of scared of taking a cold shower. I had to rinse off. It takes forever for the hot water to get upstairs in the bathroom. And this morning I had to take a really quick shower. I didn't have time for the water to get, so I had to jump into it. And I was hot,
Oh,
I had to jump into it cold. And I was like,
yeah, that's great.
ah!
So
That-
Maria, what are you going to do? Let's wrap this up.
Wait,
What are
I
you-
want to just add one more thought
Yeah.
before we get to our takeaways.
Okay.
This he kind of ended with this, and Michael Easton did in one interview I was listening to with him, and I think this is so true. And I alluded to it earlier. If we know we're going to die,
Mhm.
we're going to live our lives differently. And a lot of really good sort of retreats and things start with this concept of, if you're really evaluating your life, what do you want to have done? What do you want people to say about you when you die? But it's more than that, just being aware that death is coming. And so, being with my sister as she was dying and watching her die, seeing your mom die, and other people, just like, I'm not going to live forever, and that kind of that's an uncomfortable thought, but it also makes me want to, it's just my perspective. It makes me want to be kinder and better and, try new things, knowing that my time is limited.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to motivate yourself to do things that are uncomfortable and benefit from them. So definitely.
It's now time for the takeaways. Maria, you and I have heard the takeaways are the best part of the show.
That's right, Kelly, because the takeaways are curated information, which is what we give to our clients when we coach them.
If you would like to take your performance to the next level in health, life, or leadership, go to our website and schedule your free 30-minute consultation.
Yes, just click on our coaching page and book there. We're looking forward to bringing out the champion in you.
And now, the takeaways.
Okay, so
now you're going to ask me, what am I going to do?
yeah, well, our takeaways. So
Yeah.
the takeaways for this, what are two things that you're going to do that are going to make you uncomfortable that are going to have a benefit, a
Yeah.
real benefit, and what are those benefits?
Yeah.
Maybe you do one and I'll do one, and
Yeah. Well, again, this is sort of a physical one, but Jim just has been bugging me to do two things. One is just this isn't even hard or scary. It's just a matter of kind of figuring everything out. Is he wants to take the train into Boston and spend an evening and in Boston, have dinner, and then take the train back. We just haven't. And he's been talking to me, and I've been sort of, as we've been having this conversation, well, what's been my resistance? And I think it's just finding spots in my routine to do it, to clear out and, and to be willing to say no to, getting things done or working on the house or whatever, things that seem important right now. I've been telling him after this and after that and after that. So this, again, I think that's a really good example because it's not really terribly scary, but it's a little bit uncomfortable. It's a little bit out of my comfort zone. I haven't ever done it before, and it's going to take some research on my part. I'm going to have to think about it and where we're going to go and make reservations and make sure we get on the train back and blah, 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 blah. So that's one little thing. And the benefit will be that it'll make Jim happy because he's really wanted to do it. And B, it'll be, once we do that once, I'll know how to do it every time. We can run into Boston, on a regular basis if we want to. So that's one thing. How about you, Kelly?
that's beautiful. There's an opportunity here in our community. I've heard through some people that are in charge of our community that they want to build a pool. So, wow, it would be so amazing to have a pool built,
Right
a
there.
new pool right here near our home and near, Brevard County where we live needs another pool. We do not have many pools, especially public pools. So, wow, would it be uncomfortable? The person that's kind of in charge of this has asked me if I would like to spearhead it, because certainly I have a lot of the background to do that. And so, gosh, it would be so uncomfortable to spearhead
Wow.
building a pool in our community. But what the payoffs would be for the community, just thinking of, all the people that would have access to a beautiful public pool in this area, right in the center of our county.
Wow.
Which there isn't one. There really just isn't one.
So many people live there. I can't believe there isn't one.
I know, it's crazy. And the community is even willing to donate the land.
Okay.
So, anyway, that would be very scary and very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So that would be something that Mark and I are kind of still considering.
Wow.
Yeah. So what's
second one
another
is again, I think everything hard that I've ever done, Jim has goaded me to do. So
did he make you do RAM?
Yeah. Well, he didn't make me, but it was totally his idea. Yeah. Almost everything I've ever done. I think I ran my first marathon on my own, but everything else, the cycling stuff for sure. But speaking of cycling stuff, there's an epic event called the Trans-American Race, Trans Am, and it's a self-supported 4,000 mile race. And basically you have to, you ride your bike across the country. There's no team. There's no, you get no help. You just you camp as you make your way across. And Jim's been, again, bugging me, we got to do Trans Am as a couple. There's a couple. And so he's, now he's like, really, I usually say, no, I don't want to camp. No, I've already done RAM. I don't want to do it. But he caught me at kind of a weak moment. Oh, it was after I was preparing for this podcast. Oh. And I was giving him the whole monologue about how we got to make ourselves uncomfortable. He says, okay, we're doing Trans Am.
Oh gosh, that's hilarious.
So we'll either do it next year or the year after. And it means basically I've got to learn to be a bike mechanic. I've got to learn, we have to buy the equipment for camping on the ground, and he'll have to take at least a month or 6 weeks off. And so that scares the bejeepers out of me.
Wow, that is definitely out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. But just learning to work on the bike is out of my comfort zone. So
yeah. So
second one for you, Cal.
My second one, I think probably my theme throughout this has been, relationships, and it's just always uncomfortable when you have a problem with an important relationship, whether that's a loved one, a family member. It's just, it's kind of, it's uncomfortable, and it's inconvenient as well. So discomfort comes with inconvenience and fear and scariness and all kinds of stuff. So just, I think, and I'm not going to go into many details, but I have a childhood friend of 50 years. We met when we were 10, and we're both turning 60 this month. And so that next relationship week, right now next week. Next week. Yeah. That relationship right now is not there for a number of reasons. And so I want to mend that, and I want to, celebrate our birthdays together, but it's very uncomfortable to do that. It's hard because we need to have some good communication and discussion and openness. And so
do you think it'll be, your efforts will be rejected or accepted?
Oh, it doesn't matter, because it shouldn't matter whether, she says, we're done, or whether she says, you're right, I love you, and it shouldn't matter. The point is that it's going to be very uncomfortable, but I'm going to approach it. So wow, that's the bottom line.
Wow. Well, I'm so proud of you, Kelly. That's hard.
Well, I mean,
I know that's hard.
Yeah, I know that,
because you've kind of tried before, and I know.
Yeah, I've tried, but not quite as firmly as I'm going to try.
Good for you. Yeah. Well, what a great topic. And just a great thing to think about it. It's sort of an evaluative way for, once a week or once a month. It's like, where have I been uncomfortable this week? Yeah. What have I done this year that's put me out of my comfort zone? And how can I do more of that?
Yeah. Love it. Love it. All right, Maria, I love you. This has been so fun.
Yes. All right. Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Champions Mojo podcast with host Kelly Palace and Maria Parker. Champions Mojo is produced by Cabra Media, and a new episode debuts every Tuesday. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. Follow Champions Mojo on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Champions Mojo.